Hi. I'm a little bit late. Nothing was ready, and I was distracted. By my contacts, I got my. Well, I can't even. These might be too dark. What is the buzz? Do you know what they're buzzing? Check my mic cable. Oh. Maybe the connectors. No, I will not. We're not dropping any beats. It's connected. That made it. I'd really hate for me to get this cable just for it to start acting up. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. Is it still bad? Maybe we move back to the short cord. Maybe the connector is. Hold on. Better, worse, same. There we go. Stop. No, we're not. No beats. No beats. It's the connector. I got a connector specifically. Well, guess we're back to the shorty now. It's fine. Pond will just knock everything over. Pond would have found a way to knock over everything anyway, so I guess whenever Pond decides she's gonna grace us with her presence, we will all have to brace ourselves. The buzz is gone. I fixed it. Better. Awesome. Do I like metal? Yes. I'm so sorry for the static. Everybody's just like, my volume was all the way up. It got louder. Feel bad. I would love a new band to check out. Thanks. Best cousin ever. Well, this started in a weird way. I'm so sorry about the static, you guys. Defect. Okay, hold up. We're taking a screenshot. Nobody talk. Thank you, so I can remember it later. I'll forget by the end of the live. I feel like I just black out every time the live starts, and then I wake up like an hour and a half later, and then I'm like, what was I doing the whole time? All right. That's how we get the new people out who don't know what's going on. No, in case you are new and you're still here through all that, I'm gonna read you guys a book. That's what this live is. So, if you don't want a bedtime story, you might want to book it. Get it? Okay. Why is this trash book here? This isn't the book. I gotta get this trash out of here. Hold on. This is the trash book. Where's the book that I wanted to read? Okay, here we go. Okay, fuck. Just throw that on the floor. No, you've been here. You've been here before, at least. If you know what the live is, then you are prepared for subsequent events. Did I pray today? No. No, I didn't. Um, must have forgotten to strike that off the to-do list. If they understand. Yeah, no, you at least know what the live is. You're prepared. So if you don't know, this is your chance to find out. We're reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We're on book 2, the end of it, actually. This is the finale. You came in at the end. What does that say about your life? No. All the rest is on my YouTube, so you can go check that out. The link is in my bio. You can go to the link tree, go through there. I'm pretty sure there's also just a YouTube icon you can click. It'll take you right there. It is a little out of date. I have to update the last 2 chapters because TikTok will not give me a recording of those lives. So I'm going to re-record it, and normally the re-records sound better anyway. I put a lot of effort into those. So I will be finishing that up here within this next week, hopefully. As long as no crazy crap happens. But even though I had to deal with a lot of crazy stuff this week, I got my insurance changed. So now my insurance won't lapse, which means I can continue going to therapy, which is good news for everyone, I'm sure. You found the theater button. Yeah, there's a whole cult upon, which we're going to play after the live. And I also have a Discord. If you haven't been there, I play video games after the live. If listening to books isn't your thing, you can wait until afterward. And then we're all going to play Cult of the Lamb and continue our adventures there. So, that's what we do here. I don't talk for the whole time. Thank God. Like y'all want to listen to that. So, like, I'm a little bit late, so we could catch up for a few minutes before I start, but we're on all of the audiobook. What happened to my life? Why is my connection bad? Why are you red? My life just tanked for a second. Let's give it a minute. You need a minute? TikTok, you good? You feeling alright? No, it's mine. I don't know what's going on. Rude. Hold on. It's Pride Month. You can't do this. Unstable connection, my ass. How come straight people never have unstable connections? Just a thought. Anyway. That's why it's doing it. It was okay. It was just nonsense. It's shit you already know. Stuff you already know. Don't even worry about it. You are up to date. You, particularly, I know, are up to date. Swiftblood, once again, Pride Month. Get... I have stable connections, just not with my mom. My dad's good, though. Sorry, I read that and I was like, have a nice death. Also sounds fun. Anyway, I have, and speaking of dads, it was Father's Day, and I have your gift over here. I have to give it to you. Anyway. So we'll do that tonight after the live. Anyway, I hope you all are good. How are y'all doing? Any update? Paramedic. Sorry, there's a siren, and I was like, is that a cop or... There's the fire truck. What happened? You play as death and go after your subordinates? Solid. I'm there. Sold. Say no more. Will definitely check that out. How are y'all doing? Y'all doing okay? Is everybody good? Everybody got your beverages, squishy pillows, a pet? Is Toby here? Is Toby here? Is Toby here? Is Cuddles here? Is everybody here? I was just asking for an update. You don't have to make the corgi every single time, but I appreciate it. I'm in my mom's car while she's door dashing. I hope she likes the story. Do you have the aux cable? You got headphones or something, right? All right. Hello, Toby. I hope he's there. I hope he's listening. He can hear me. Okay, good. I was like, whoa. I don't do great with moms. I am currently waiting for my Volume 5 of Grandmaster with great anticipation. I have my trash novel that I'm reading in the meantime. Calling it a novel is generous. I don't know what it is. It's definitely not great. Oh, I just like that Toby knows who I am. Toby recognizes my voice and is like, yes. I think it's cool that people's pets know the sound of my voice. It's just like, that's honestly more flattering than having human people be into my content. Is my dog likes it, and I'm like, what? Yes. Start making dog content. Content for dogs exclusively. I don't know how well that will work. I don't know if that's great. Yeah, I don't know how marketable that is. Thank you for all the cat paws. I appreciate it. Yay. I hope my connection levels out. I'm sitting here kind of looking at the yellow, like, you gonna pick up your business or like what? No. What? Send this shit to me. Don't just watch it and then not tell me about it. Someone's gotta send me the video. I don't know. Unless it was like on a live or something. I don't check my phone super often when I am not using it actively to make stuff. So like I will not always be on there. Or worse yet, I'm reading a book on my phone and then I'll be like irritated. I'm like, who is in the middle of a chapter? I would also like to see the video. I would also like the cat language information, please. Thank you. That'd be great. That'd be great. If anybody else can y'all hear the sirens? Is it just me? I feel like it's really loud. Like it sounds like it's in the neighborhood. Maybe it's not, and anytime I hear a sound outside my window now, I'm like, I am recording. Well, you also live here. Okay. If you could hear it, okay. Okay. Some people can hear it, some people can't. Okay. I don't want to start if there's sirens in the background. That might fit the vibe, honestly. And depending on how you look at it. Wish this happened later in the chapter, but you know, whatever. Not at the beginning, maybe the end. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Diablo 4. Okay. Time to start cooking. Time to start reading. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read. If you were not here and you need to be caught up a little bit because I know the YouTube is a little out of date. Don't worry, the kids made it to Miss Wren's. Miss Wren is trying to fix Miss Peregrine. Unfortunately, Miss Peregrine is still stuck as a bird, and it's taken some work to get her to sort of come out of it. So she's working on that, and everyone else is just kind of palling around with all the peculiar army soldiers. Not really. They're a ragtag bunch of peculiars who want to think of themselves as an army in the future. And at the tail end of the chapter, Emma makes the case that Jacob should leave. He should just leave and go home now that they got Miss Peregrine safe. That he should just go back to his parents and everything will be peachy keen, and that she's actually pretty bad for him. And he kind of got mad and he walked off, and he's thinking about it. So that's where we left off, and that's what you missed on Glee. Pretty much the only other information that you really need to know is that it's a working theory of Millard's right now that whites are extracting peculiar souls. Now, that hasn't been confirmed, but it's important. You should remember it. Anyway, and that's what you missed on Glee, and that's it. And we're going to pick up where we left off. I'm probably going to mispronounce some words on this chapter. Everybody forgive me. One particular word. 42. I don't know what 42 means. 2 I'm prepared for. 3 I anticipate a little bit. 42 is not like a normal input. Whatever I say it means, 42 I say means I get to take a nap and not just leave the camera on for 2 hours. That's what I think 42 means. That's what I want 42 to mean. It's nap time. No, naps are good. I can't take a nap on camera. I'll never fall asleep. I can barely function on camera. I don't think I could actually become unconscious on camera to do that. Is everything else good? Is my connection good? I'm still slightly worried about it. But everybody's given 2s, so are we at least... Can you all still hear me? Yes, I have. It's been years. I have read it. Okay. Solid. We're gonna jump in. Everybody get fucking comfortable. Because we're about to get real uncomfortable. Okay. Oh! When I ask if everything's okay and everybody starts saying 2 and Swiftblood, I think it's an input. And this is the final chapter, chapter 13, guys. I moved quietly through the halls. I stood outside the Embrun meeting room for a while, listening to muffled voices through the door, but I didn't go in. I peeked into the nurse's room and saw her dozing on a stool between the single-souled peculiars. I cracked the door to Miss Wren's room and saw her rocking Miss Peregrine in her lap, gently kneading her fingers into the bird's feathers. I said nothing to anyone. Wandering through empty halls and ransacked offices, I tried to imagine what home would feel like, if after all this, I chose to go back. What I would tell my parents? I'd tell them nothing, most likely. They'd never believe me anyway. I would say I'd gone mad, written a letter to my dad, filled with crazy stories, then caught a boat to the mainland and run away. They'd call it a stress reaction, chalk it up to some invented disorder and adjust my meds accordingly, blame Dr. Golan for suggesting I go to Wales, Dr. Golan, whom, of course, they'd never hear from again. He'd skip town, they'd say, because he was a fraud, a quack whom we never should have trusted, and I'd go back to being Jacob, the poor, traumatized, mentally disturbed rich kid. It sounded like a prison sentence. And yet, if my best reason for staying in peculiardom didn't want me anymore, I wouldn't debase myself by clinging to her. I had my pride. How long could I stay in Florida, now that I'd had a taste of this peculiar life? I was not nearly as ordinary as I used to be, or if it was true that I'd never been ordinary. Now I knew it. I had changed, and that, at least, gave me some hope that even under ordinary circumstances, I still might find a way to live an extraordinary life. Yet, yes, it was best to go. It really was best. If this world was dying, and there was nothing to be done for it, then what was left for me here? To run and hide until there was no safe place left to go, no loop to sustain my friends, artificial youth, to watch them die, to hold Emma as she crumbled and broke apart in my arms? That would kill me faster than any hollow could. So yes, I would go. Salvage what was left of my old life. Goodbye, peculiars. Goodbye, peculiardom. It was for the best. I wandered until I came to a place where the rooms were only half frozen, and the ice had risen halfway to the ceiling like water in a sinking ship and then stopped, leaving the tops of desks and the heads of lamps sticking out like faltering swimmers. Beyond the iced windows, the sun was sinking. Shadows bloomed across the walls and multiplied in the stairwells, and as the light died, it got bluer, painting everything around me a deep-sea cobalt. It occurred to me that this was probably my last night in peculiardom. My last night with the best friends I'd ever had. My last night with Emma. Why was I spending it alone? Because I was sad and Emma had hurt my pride and I needed to sulk. Enough of this. Just as I turned to leave the room, though, I felt it. That odd, familiar twinge in my gut. A hollow. I stopped, waiting for another hit of pain. I needed more information. The intensity of the pain corresponded to the nearness of the hollow and the frequency of the hits with its strength. When two strong hollows had been chasing us, the feeling had been one long, unbroken spasm, but now it was a long time before I felt another, nearly a minute, and when it came, it was so faint I wasn't even sure I'd felt it. I crept slowly out of the room and down the hall. As I passed the next doorway, I felt a third twinge, a little stronger now, but still only a whisper. I tried to open the door carefully and quietly, but it was frozen shut. I had to yank on it and then rattle the door, then kick it until finally it flew open to reveal a doorway and a room filled with ice that rose to mid-chest height. I approached the ice cautiously and peered across it, and even in the weak light, I saw the hollow right away. It was crouched on the floor, encased in ice up to its ink-black eyeballs. Only the top half of its head was exposed above the ice. The rest of it, the dangerous parts, its open jaws and all its teeth and tongues, were all caught below the surface. The thing was just barely alive. Its heart slowed almost to nothing, beating maybe once per minute. With each feeble pulse, I felt a corresponding stitch of pain. I stood at the mouth of the room and stared at it, fascinated and repulsed. It was unconscious, immobilized, totally vulnerable. It would have been easy to climb onto the ice and drive the point of an icicle into the hollow's skull, and if anyone else had known it was here, I'm sure they would have done just that. But something stopped me. It was no threat to anyone now, this creature. Every hollow I'd come into contact with had left a mark on me. I saw their decaying faces in my dreams. Soon I'd be going home, where I'd no longer be Jacob the Hollow Slayer. I didn't want to take this one with me, too. It wasn't my business anymore. I backed out of the room and closed the door. When I returned to the meeting hall, it was nearly dark outside, and the room was black as night. Because Miss Wren wouldn't allow the gas lamps to be lit for fear they'd be seen from the street, everyone had gathered around a few candles at the big oval table, some in chairs and others perched cross-legged on the table itself, talking in low voices and peering down at something. At the creak of the heavy doors, everyone turned to look at me. "Miss Wren?" Bronwyn said hopefully, straightening in her chair and squinting. "It's only Jacob," said another shadowy form. After a chorus of disappointed sighs, Bronwyn said, "Oh, hello, Jacob," and returned her attention to the table. As I walked toward them, I locked eyes with Emma. Holding her gaze, I saw something raw and unguarded there. A fear, I imagined, that I had in fact decided to do what she'd urged me to do. Then her eyes dulled and she looked down again. I'd been half hoping Emma had taken pity on me and told the others I was leaving already, but of course she hadn't. I hadn't told her yet. She seemed to know, though, just from reading my face as I crossed the room. It was clear the others had no idea. They were so accustomed to my presence, they'd forgotten it was even under consideration. I steeled myself and asked for everyone's attention. Wait a moment, said a heavily accented voice, and in the candlelight I saw the snake girl and her python looking at me. "This boy here was just spewing a lot of rubbish about the place I hailed from." She turned to the only chair at the table, which was empty, and said, "My people call it Simhaladvipa, dwelling place of lions." From the chair, Millard replied, "I'm sorry, but it says right here in plain calligraphy, the land of Serendip. The peculiar cartographers who made this were not in the business of making things up." Then I got a little closer and saw what it was they were arguing over. It was a map of days. Though a much larger edition than the one we'd lost at sea, this one stretched practically across the table and was as thick as a brick stood on end. "I know my own home, and it is called Simhaladvipa," the snake girl insisted, and her python uncoiled from her neck and shot across the table to bang its nose against the map, indicating a teardrop-shaped island off India's coast. On this map, however, India was called Malabar, and the island which I knew to be Sri Lanka was overlaid with slinky script that read Land of Serendip. "It's pointless to argue," said Millard. "Some places have as many names as they have occupants to name them. Now please ask your serpent to back away, lest he crinkle the pages." The snake girl harumphed and muttered something, and the python slunk away to coil around her neck again. All the while I couldn't stop staring at the book. The one we'd lost was impressive enough, though I'd seen it opened only once at night by the skittish orange firelight of the burning home for peculiar children. This one was of another scale entirely. Not only was it orders of magnitude larger, but it was so ornate that it made the others look like so much leather-bound toilet paper. Colorful maps spilled across its pages, which were made from something stronger than paper, calfskin maybe, and edged with gold. Lush illustrations and legends and blocks of explanatory text stuffed the margins. Millard noticed me admiring it and said, "Isn't it stunning? Excepting perhaps the Codex Peculiaris, the edition of the map is the finest book in all of peculiardom. It took a team of cartographers, artists, and bookmakers a lifetime to create, and it's said that Perplexus Anomalus himself drew some of the maps. I've wanted to see it in person ever since I was a boy. Oh, I'm so pleased." "It really is something," I said, and it was. "Millard was just showing us some of his favorite parts," said Olive. "I like the pictures best." "To take their mind off things," Millard explained, "and make the waiting easier. Here, Jacob, come and help me turn the pages." Rather than ruin Millard's moment with my sad announcement, I decided it could wait a little while. I wasn't going anywhere until morning at least, and I wanted to enjoy a few more minutes with my friends unburdened by weightier things. I sidled up next to Millard and slipped my fingers under the page, which was so large that I took both my hands in his to turn. We pored over the map. I was absorbed by it, especially the far-flung and lesser-known parts. Naturally, Europe and its many loops were well defined, but farther afield things got sketchier. Vast swaths of Africa were simply blank, terra incognita. The same was true of Siberia, although the map of days had its own name for Russia's far east, the great far-reaching solitude.
"Are there loops in these places?" asked Olive, pointing to a void that stretched across much of China. "Are there peculiars there like us?"
"Certainly there are," Millard said. "Peculiarness is determined by genes, not geography, but large portions of the peculiar world have simply not been explored."
"Why not?"
"I suppose we were too busy surviving." It occurred to me that the business of surviving precluded a great many things, exploring and falling in love not least among them. We turned more pages, hunting for blank spots. There were many, and all had fanciful names. The mournful kingdom of sand, the land made in anger, a high place full of stars. I mouthed the words silently to myself, appreciating their roundness. At the margins lurked fearsome places the map called wastes. The far north of Scandinavia was the icy waste. The middle of Borneo, the stifling waste. Much of the Arabian Peninsula, the pitiless waste. The southern tip of Patagonia, the cheerless waste. Certain places weren't represented at all. New Zealand, Hawaii, Florida, which was just an ingrown nub at America's foot, barely there. Looking at the map of days, even the places that sounded most forbidding evoked in me a strange longing. It reminded me of long ago afternoons spent with my grandfather studying historic maps in National Geographic, maps drawn long before the days of airplanes and satellites, when high-resolution cameras couldn't see into the world's every nook and cranny, when the shape of now familiar coastlines was guesswork, when the depths and dimensions of icy seas and forbidding jungles were cobbled together from rumors and legends and the wild-eyed ramblings of expeditioners who'd lost half their party exploring them. When Millard rambled on about the history of the map, I traced with my finger a vast and trackless desert in Asia, where the winged creature ends not its flight. Here was a whole world yet to be discovered, and it had only just cracked its surface. The thought filled me with regret, but also a shameful kind of relief. I would see my home again, after all, and my parents, and maybe it was childish, this old urge to explore for exploring's sake. There was romance in the unknown, but once a place had been discovered and catalogued and mapped, it was diminished. Just another dusty fact in a book, sapped of mystery. So maybe it was better to leave a few spots on the map blank, to let the world keep a little bit of its magic rather than forcing it to divulge every last secret. Maybe it was better, now and then, to wonder. And then I told them. There was no point in waiting any longer. I just blurted it out. "I'm leaving," I said. "When this is all over, I'm going back home." There was a moment of shocked silence. Emma met my eyes finally, and I could see tears standing in them. Then Bronwyn got up from the table and threw her arms around me. "Brother," she said, "we'll miss you." "I'll miss you too," I said. "More than I can say."
"But why?" said Olive, floating up to my eye level. "Was I too irritating?" I put my hand on her head and pushed her back down to the floor. "Oh, no, no, it's got nothing to do with you," I said. "You were great, Olive." Emma stepped forward. "Jacob came here to help us," she said, "but he has to go back to his old life while it's still there waiting for him." The children seemed to understand. There was no anger. Most of them seemed genuinely happy for me. Miss Wren popped her head into the room to give us a quick update. Everything was going marvelously, she said. Miss Peregrine was well on her way to recovery. She'd be ready by morning. And then Miss Wren was gone again. "Thank the gods," said Horace. "Thank the birds," said Hugh. "Thank the gods and the birds," said Bronwyn. "All the birds and all the trees and all the forest." "Thank Jacob, too," said Millard. "We never would have made it this far without him." "We never even would have made it off the island," said Bronwyn. "You've done so much for us, Jacob." They all came and hugged me, each of them, one by one. Then they drifted away, and only Emma was left, and she hugged me last. A long, bittersweet embrace that felt too much like goodbye. "Asking you to leave was the hardest thing I've ever had to do," she said. "I'm glad you came around. I don't think I'd have had the strength to ask again." "I hate this," I said. "I wish there were a world where we could be together in peace." "I know," she said. "I know. I know." "I wish," I started to say. "Stop," she said. I said it anyway. "I wish you could come home with me." She looked away. "You know what would happen to me if I did?" "I know." Emma disliked long goodbyes. I could feel her steeling herself and trying to pull her pain inside. "So," she said, businesslike. "Logistics. When Miss Peregrine turns human, she'll lead you back through the carnival into the underground, and when you pass through the changeover, you'll be back in the present. Think you can manage from there?" "I think so," I said. "I'll call my parents or go to a police station or something. I'm sure there's a poster of my face in every precinct in Britain by now, knowing my dad." I laughed a little because if I hadn't, I might have started crying. "Okay then," she said. "Okay then," I said. We looked at each other, not quite ready to let go, not sure what else to do. My instinct was to kiss her, but I stopped myself. That wasn't allowed anymore. "You go," she said. "If you never hear from us again, well, one day, you'll be able to tell our story. You can tell your kids about us, or your grandkids, and we won't entirely be forgotten." I knew then that from now on, every word that passed between us would hurt, would be wrapped up with and marked by the pain of this moment, and that I needed to pull away now or it would never stop. So I nodded sadly, hugged her one more time, and retreated to a corner to sleep because I was very, very tired. After a while, the others dragged mattresses and blankets into the room and made a nest around me, and we packed together for warmth against the encroaching chill. But as the others began to bed down, I found myself unable to sleep, despite my exhaustion, and I got up and paced the room for a while, watching the children from a distance. I'd felt so many things since our journey began. Joy, fear, hope, horror. But until now, I'd never once felt alone. Bronwyn had called me brother, but that didn't sound right anymore. I was a second cousin to them at best. Emma was right. I could never understand. They were so old, had seen so much, and I was from another world. Now it was time to go back. Eventually, I fell asleep to the sound of ice groaning and cracking in the floors beneath us in the attic above. The building was alive with it. That night, strange and urgent dreams. I'm home again, doing all the things I used to do. Tearing into a fast food hamburger, big, brown, and greasy, riding shotgun in Ricky's Crown Vic, bad radio blaring. At the grocery store with my parents, sliding down long, too bright aisles, and Emma is there cooling her hands in the ice at the fish counter, meltwater running everywhere. She doesn't recognize me. Then I'm at the arcade where I had my 12th birthday party, firing a plastic gun, bodies bursting, blood-filled balloons. Jacob, where are you? Then school, teachers writing on the board, but the letters don't make sense. Then everyone's on their feet, hurrying outside. Something's wrong. A loud noise, rising and falling. Everyone's standing still, heads craned to the sky. Air raid. Jacob, where are you? Hand on my shoulder. It's an old man. A man without eyes. Come to steal mine. Not a man. A thing. A monster. Running now, chasing my old dog. Years ago she'd broken away from me, run off with her leash still attached, and got it wrapped around a branch while trying to tree a squirrel. Strangled herself. We spent 2 weeks wandering the neighborhood, calling her name. Found her after 3. Old Snuffles. The siren deafening now. I run and a car pulls alongside me and picks me up. My parents are inside, in formal wear. They won't look at me. The doors lock. We're driving and it's stifling hot outside, but the heater is on and the windows are up and the radio is loud but turned to the garble between stations. Mom, where are we going? She doesn't answer. Dad, why are we stopping here? Then we're out walking and I can breathe again. Pretty green place, smells of fresh cut grass, people in black gathered around a hole in the ground. A coffin open on a dais. I peer inside. It's empty, but for an oily stain slowly spreading across the bottom, blacking the white satin. Quick, close the lid! Black tar bubbles out from the cracks and grooves and drips down into the grass and sinks into the earth. Jacob, where are you? Say something. The headstone reads, Abraham Ezra Portman. And I'm tumbling into his open grave, darkness spinning up to swallow me, and I keep falling in its bottomless. And then I'm somewhere underground, alone, and wandering through 1,000 interconnecting tunnels, and I'm wandering, and it's cold. So cold, I'm afraid my skin will freeze and my bones will splinter, and everywhere there are yellow eyes watching me from the dark. I follow the voice. Jacob, come here. Don't be afraid. The tunnel angles upward and there's light at the end, and standing at its mouth calmly reading a book is a young man, and he looks just like me. Or almost like me, and maybe he is me, I think, but then he speaks, and it's my grandfather's voice. I have something to show you. Here's a picture. For a moment I jolted awake in the dark, and I knew I was dreaming, but I didn't know where I was, only that I was not in bed anymore, not in the meeting hall with the others. I'd gone elsewhere, and the room I was in was all black, with ice beneath me, my stomach writhing. "Jacob, come here, where are you?" A voice from outside, down the hall, a real voice, not something from a dream. And then I'm in the dream again, just outside the ropes of a boxing ring, and on the canvas, in the haze and lights, my grandfather faces off against a Hologhast. They circle each other. My grandfather is young and nimble on his feet, stripped to the waist, a knife in one hand. The hollow is bent and twisted, its tongues waving in the air, open jaws dripping black on the map. It whips out a tongue, and my grandfather dodges it. "Don't fight the pain, that's the key," my grandfather said. "It's telling you something. Welcome it. Let it speak to you. The pain says, 'Hello, I am not other than you. I am of the hollow, but I am you also.'" The hollow whips at him again. My grandfather anticipates it, makes room in advance of the strike. Then the hollow strikes a third time, and my grandfather lashes out with his knife, and the tip of the hollow's black tongue falls to the mat, severed and jolting. "They're stupid creatures, highly suggestible. Speak to them, Jakob." And my grandfather begins to speak, but not in English, nor Polish, nor any language I've ever heard outside my dreams. It's like some guttural outgassing, the sounds made with something other than a throat or a mouth. And the creature stops moving, merely swaying where it stands, seemingly hypnotized. Still speaking his frightening gibberish, my grandfather lowers his knife and creeps towards it. The closer he gets, the more docile the creature becomes, finally sinking down to the mat on its knees. I think it's about to close its eyes and go to sleep, when suddenly the hollow breaks free of whatever spell my grandfather has cast over it, and it lashes out with all its tongues and impales my grandfather. As he falls, I leap over the ropes and run towards him, and the hollow slips away. My grandfather is on his back on the mat, and I am kneeling by his side, my hand on his face, and he is whispering something to me, blood bubbling on his lips, so I bend closer to hear him. "You are more than me, Jakob," he says. "You are more than I ever was." I can feel his heart slow, hear it somehow, until whole seconds elapse between beats, then tens of seconds, and then, "Jacob, where are you?" I jolted awake again. Now there was light in the room. It was morning, just the blue beginning of it. I was kneeling on the ice in the half-filled room, and my hand wasn't on my grandfather's face, but resting atop the trapped hollow's skull, its slow reptilian brain. Its eyes were open and looking at me, and I was looking right back. "I see you." "Jacob, what are you doing? I've been looking for you everywhere." It was Emma, frantic, out in the hall. "What are you doing?" she asked again. She couldn't see the hollow, didn't know it was there. I took my hand away from its head, slid back from it. I don't know," I said. "I think I was sleepwalking." "It doesn't matter," she said. "Come quick, Miss Peregrine's about to change." Crowded into the little room were all the children and all the freaks from the sideshow, pale and nervous, pressed against the walls and crouched on the floor in a wide berth around the two Imbrans like gamblers in a backroom cockfight. Emma and I slipped in among them and huddled in a corner, eyes glued to the unfolding spectacle. The room was a mess. The rocking chair where Miss Wren had sat all night with Miss Peregrine was toppled on its side. The table of vials and beakers pushed roughly against the wall. Althea stood on top of it, clutching a net on a pole, ready to wield it. In the middle of the floor were Miss Wren and Miss Peregrine. Miss Wren was on her knees, and she had Miss Peregrine pinned to the floorboards, her hands in thick falconing gloves, sweating and chanting an old peculiar, while Miss Peregrine squawked and flailed with her talons. But no matter how hard Miss Peregrine thrashed, Miss Wren wouldn't let go. At some point in the night, Miss Wren's gentle massage had turned into something resembling an interspecies pro-wrestling match crossed with an exorcism. The bird half of Miss Peregrine had so thoroughly dominated her nature that it was refusing to be driven away without a fight. Both Imbrans had sustained minor injuries. Miss Peregrine's feathers were everywhere, and Miss Wren had a long, bloody scratch running down one side of her face. It was a disturbing sight, and many of the children looked on with open-mouthed shock. Wild-eyed and savage, the bird Miss Wren was grinding into the floor was one we hardly recognized. It seemed incredible that a fully restored Miss Peregrine of old might result from this violent display, but Althea kept smiling at us and giving us encouraging nods as if to say, "Almost there, just a little more floor grinding." And for such a frail old lady, Miss Wren was giving Miss Peregrine a pretty good clobbering. But then the bird jabbed at Miss Wren with her beak, and Miss Wren's grasp slipped, and with a big flap of her wings, Miss Peregrine nearly escaped from her hands. The children reacted with shouts and gasps, but Miss Wren was quick, and she leapt up and managed to catch Miss Peregrine by her hind leg and thump her down against the floorboards again, which made the children gasp even louder. We weren't used to seeing our Imbran treated like this, and Bronwyn actually had to stop Hugh from rushing into the fight to protect her. Both Imbrans seemed profoundly exhausted now, but Miss Peregrine more so. I could see her strength failing. Her human nature seemed to be winning out over her bird nature. "Come on, Miss Wren," Bronwyn cried. "You can do it, Miss Wren," called Horace. "Bring her back to us." "Please," said Althea. "We require absolute silence." After a long time, Miss Peregrine quit struggling and lay on the ground with her wings splayed, gasping for air, feathered chest heaving. Miss Wren took her hands off the bird and sat back on her haunches. "It's about to happen," she said, "and when it does, I don't want any of you to rush over here grabbing at her. Your Imbran will likely be very confused, and I want the first face she sees and voice she hears to be mine. I'll need to explain to her what's happened." And then she clasped her hands to her chest and murmured, "Come back to us, Alma. Come on, sister. Come back to us." Althea stepped down from the table and picked up a sheet, which she unfolded and held up in front of Miss Peregrine to shield her from view. When Imbrans turned from birds into humans, they were naked. This would give her some privacy. We waited in breathless suspense while a succession of strange noises came from behind the sheet, an expulsion of air, a sound like someone clapping their hands once, sharply, and then Miss Wren jumped up and took a shaky step backward. She looked frightened. Her mouth was open, and so was Althea's, and then Miss Wren said, "No, this can't be," and Althea stumbled, faint, letting the sheet drop, and there, on the floor, we saw a human form, but not a woman's. He was naked, curled into a ball, his back to us. He began to stir and uncurl, and finally to stand.
"Is that Miss Peregrine?" said Olive. "She came out funny."
Clearly, it was not. The person before us bore no resemblance whatsoever to Miss Peregrine. He was a stunted little man with knobbly knees and a balding head and a nose like a used pencil eraser. And he was stark naked and slimed head to toe with sticky, translucent gel, while Miss Wren gaped at him and grasped for something to steady herself with. In shock and anger, the others all began to shout, "Who are you? Who are you? What have you done with Miss Peregrine?" Slowly, the man raised his hands to his face and rubbed his eyes. Then, for the first time, he opened them. The pupils were blank and white. I heard someone scream. Then, very calmly, the man said, "My name is Cole, and you are all my prisoners now."
Gonna take a little bit of a break. That's intermission. Yeah, so things aren't looking as optimistic as we thought, perhaps. So that's fun. We'll get to it. Give me a minute. I just wanted to appreciate the shock. That is why I stopped there, for all the people who were unprepared for this. When I was first reading it, I kind of figured it out when Miss Peregrine killed one of Miss Wren's peculiar pigeons. I was like, that's odd, right? That's odd. That's not Miss Peregrine. So, Toby is barking mad. I'm sorry, Toby. And then I was like, well, I also figured it out at Bird on Bird Violence. Yeah, that's where I was like, that's not her, right? She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. Well, the pigeon was like, F you. But that is where I pegged it. So yeah, that it did seem sus, didn't it? I first read it and I was like, that's weird. That's not right. That not her. That not her, huh? I mean, they did sort of only rescue one bird, and there were two in the cage back at the house in the first book. So we can't exactly verify which birds were in which cage at which times. Well, normally whites can't turn into birds. We'll cover that. We're getting to it. It's gonna be a fun time. Everybody having a good time? How's everybody doing? We're all having a good book club night? Y'all feeling good about this? Y'all are gonna be so mad by the end of this chapter. No, I'm folding laundry. I'm sorry about your laundry. Laundry is a struggle. I feel like it personally. Nobody in the neurodivergent community, I feel like laundry is like. That's just torture. No, No, not feeling good. Mood same. I am so glad that it's not a fun ride without a good plot twist. I am upsetty spaghetti. That was not in the cards. Where is Miss Peregrine? Who knows where she is? In all honesty, we'll find out eventually. Mount Laundry shall never be completed. Lilith in D4. Glad you're here. Plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. This game is just a whole ring around the rosy. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't have really thought it was all gonna be Gucci from here on out. There's several other books that we have to read in this series. Is it gotta keep you coming back. Find out next time on the next episode of, no, the next episode is in like a couple of minutes. We're gonna finish this, and then you're gonna be real mad by the ending, and then we're gonna start the third one. And yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. This is some Mulligan level BS. My ghost! Forgot I got this out of the fridge for my caffeine needs. Thank you, Swiftblood, for reminding me. Why is the top of this can all jank? Oh, I'm gonna pop this open and it's gonna be everywhere. Because this tab is not... We have a critical tab failure. That's not working great. Oops. And still drink out of it. I feel like if I try and I'm just going to spill it everywhere, and then we will be delayed further. Thank you, Diana, for sponsoring all my caffeine needs at any given time. No matter what kind of caffeine it is, you just keep me going. I do not know. They're still drinkable. It's just a critical tab failure. It's fine. Gotta juice up and get my caffeine in while I can. I should move this little hot plate thing so I can set my ghost in there and it won't get warm. Ugh. Set my ghost over here. Set the little hot plate on the trash book. I got the water for when I read it because it keeps my throat clear. But I gotta have a vape break. Gotta have a little vape break. Honestly, those the strawberry monsters, good, really good, actually. Yes, I am trying to burn the trash book. I have drank so many of those. One goes with me to work every single day, and I'm almost out of ghost too. I should not have said that. Let me phrase that. When I say almost out, I mean like there's like at least 5. Should not say that out loud. Yeah, I'm trying to burn the trash book because no. Fuck. I need to monitor what I'm saying at all times. I should not be allowed on the internet. Why am I here? Why do I do this every single week? I stick my foot in my mouth every single time. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, yeah, I be drinking them all the time. And then I'm like, I should not have said that. I should not have said that. I Hagrid myself at least once every 3 weeks. Less than 100, more than one. Gestures vaguely. I do, and I feel like I phase out of existence when I'm live because it makes me nervous. I get nervous being live, and then I just don't. I phase out of existence, and I become a separate person whom I have never met in my entire life. And anytime I'm being observed, I become a completely different person. The one who I have a bare recollection of. And I forget how to conduct myself like a normal fucking person. Perfectly normal if you meet me in real life. Yeah, but this feels like performance art, and that is the only reason. I am reading a book. I'm making a whole imagination show in my brain for you all to enjoy. I do silly little voices, and I make a whole universe in my brain, and I just like to share it with people. That shouldn't be allowed. It's the anxiety. I should get medication for anxiety. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, enjoy that. Enjoy this neat little window of me doing silly voices of book characters for several hours. Thank you for listening. I did not have enough caffeine today for the amount of shit I've done. I'm making wig soup in the kitchen. I ran a bunch of errands. I went into a Walmart. A Walmart. For what? Blue. That looks green on camera, but it's blue, I promise. This is green. That's supposed to be blue. Looks blue. That's more yellow. Orange. I went into a Walmart. It was terrible. I don't know what the colors are for. Is the worry, right? I am inclined to say blue, but without further information, I do not know why we would need colors. I definitely do. That's like one of my favorite activities. Unless the book is trash. And then we set it on fire with a hot plate. You said blue or orange, and I don't know what that means. I changed the light to orange. I should change it back purple. I just don't know what, because objectively, blue and orange are both colors, and I know you did not specifically say which color. You just said blue, orange, or both. But the thing is, I don't know what they are in reference to. You making something? What are you doing? What are you doing over there? I am going to worry about it. Don't even say don't worry about it, because I am already worrying about it. And I'm starved for information. Pumpkin. Both? Just say both. Both is always best. For what? For what? Send both what? No. Send both what? I definitely don't trust Swiftblood I'm inclined to hold chat hostage and not finish until you tell me what blue and pumpkin means. Honestly, more used to you doing it. We'll sit here till 10 and then I'll go game and then we'll just leave the end of the chapter for next time. We'll do it as a prelude to the next book, maybe. We've already established I wanted nap time. I'm okay with that. Denny. What's blue and pumpkin? I wanna... Yeah. Yes. Yes. I want to know. I'm not trusting you. I don't know what that means. I don't have any context. You didn't give me a crumb of information. I'm going to go ahead and say neither. Because I don't know. And I don't like either of those colors. And if you're going to send me a pumpkin, you can forget about it. You know what the other thing is? Okay. Who wants to finish a book? Got my answer. Okay. All right. Thank you, Swiftblood. All right. Really, though. Thank you. I do appreciate it when you all send me stuff. It does give me unbridled anxiety sometimes when I do not know. Only because Toby is still barking. Good to know. Cliffhanger hours, let's go. All right. Prisoners, said the folding man with a laugh. What do you mean we are prisoners? Emma shouted at Miss Wren.
Where's Miss Peregrine? Who's this man? And what have you done with Miss Peregrine?
Miss Wren seemed to have lost the ability to speak. As our confusion turned to shock and anger, we barraged the little man with questions. He endured them with a slightly bored expression, standing at the center of the room with his hands folded demurely over his privates. If you'd actually permit me to speak, I'll explain everything, he said.
Where is Miss Peregrine?
Emma shouted again, trembling with rage. Don't worry, Call said. She's safely in our custody. We kidnapped her days ago on your island. Then the bird we rescued from the submarine, I said. That was me, Call said.
Impossible, said Miss Wren, finally finding her voice. Whites can't turn into birds.
That is true, as a general rule, but Alma's my sister, you see. And though I wasn't fortunate enough to inherit any of her talents for manipulating time, I do share her most useless trait, the ability to turn into a vicious little bird of prey. I did a rather excellent job impersonating her, don't you think? And he took a little bow. Now, may I trouble you for some pants? You have me at a disadvantage. His request was ignored. Meanwhile, my head was spinning. I remembered Miss Peregrine once mentioning that she'd had 2 brothers. I'd seen their photo, actually, when they were all in the care of Miss Avocet together. Then I flashed back to the days we'd spent with the bird we had believed was Miss Peregrine. All we'd gone through,
everything we'd seen, the caged Miss Peregrine that Golan had thrown into the ocean, that had been the real one, while the one we rescued had been her brother. The cruel things Miss Peregrine had done recently made more sense now. That hadn't been Miss Peregrine at all, but I was still left with a million questions. "All that time," I said, "why did you say a bird? Just to watch us?"
While my lengthy observations of your childish bickering were incontrovertibly fascinating, I was quite hoping you could help me with a piece of unfinished business. When you killed my men in the countryside, I was impressed. You proved yourself to be quite resourceful. Naturally, my men could have swept in and taken you at any point after that, but I thought it better to let you twist in the wind a while and see if your ingenuity might not lead us to the one Imran who's consistently managed to evade us." With that, he turned to Miss Wren and grinned broadly. "Hello, Balenciaga. So good to see you again." Miss Wren moaned and fanned herself with her hand. "You idiots! You cretins! You morons!" the clown shouted. "You led them right to us." "And as a nice bonus," said Call, "we paid a visit to your menagerie as well. My men came by not long after we left. The stuffed heads of that emu raff and boxer dog will look magnificent above my mantelpiece." "You monster!" Miss Wren screeched, and she fell back against the table, legs failing her. "Oh, my bird!" exclaimed Bronwyn, her eyes wide. "Fiona and Claire." "You'll see them again soon," Call said. "I've got them in safekeeping." It all began to make a terrible kind of sense. Call knew he'd be welcomed into Miss Wren's menagerie disguised as Miss Peregrine, and when she wasn't at home to be kidnapped, he'd nudged us after her toward London. In so many ways, we'd been manipulated from the very beginning. From the moment we chose to leave the island and I chose to go along. Even the tale he'd chosen for Bronwyn to read that first night in the forest about the stone giant had been a manipulation. He wanted us to find Miss Wren's loop and think that it was we who'd cracked its secret. Those of us who weren't reeling in horror frothed with anger. Several people were shouting that Call should be killed and were busily hunting for sharp objects to do the job with, while the few who'd kept their heads were trying to hold them back. All the while, Call stood calmly, waiting for the furor to die down. "If I may," he said, "I wouldn't entertain any ideas about killing me. You could, of course, no one can stop you. But it will go much easier for you if I am unharmed when my men arrive." He pretended to check a non-existent watch on his wrist. "Ah, yes," he said. "They should be here now." "Yes, just about now, surrounding the building, covering every conceivable point of exit, including the roof. And might I add, there are 56 of them, and they are armed positively to the teeth. Beyond the teeth. Have you ever seen what a minigun can do to a child-sized human body?" He looked directly at Olive and said, "It would turn you into cat's meat, darling." "You're bluffing," said Enoch. "There's no one out there." "I assure you, there is. They've been watching me closely since we left your depressing little island, and I gave my signal to them the moment Balenciaga revealed herself to us. That was over 12 hours ago. More than ample time to muster a fighting force." "Allow me to verify this,"
said Miss Wren, and she left to go to the Embrun meeting room, where the windows were obstructed from ice, mostly from the outside, and a few had small telescope tunnels melted through them with mirror attachments that let us look down at the street below. While we waited for her to return, the clown and the snake girl debated the best way to torture Call. "I say we pull out his toenails first," said the clown, "then stick hot pokers in his eyes."
"Where I come from," the snake girl said, "the punishment for treason is being covered in honey, bound to an open boat and floated out into a stagnant pond. The flies eat you alive."
Call stood cricking his neck from side to side and stretching his arms boredly. "Apologies," he said. "Remaining a bird for so long tends to cramp the muscles." "You think we're kidding?" said the clown. "I think you're amateurs," said Call. "If you found a few young bamboo shoots, I could show you something really wicked. As delightful as that would be, though, I do recommend you melt this ice, because it'll save us all a world of trouble. I say this for your sake, out of genuine concern for your well-being."
"Yeah, right," said Emma. "Well, where was your concern when you were stealing those peculiar souls?"
Yes, our 3 prisoners, their sacrifice was, necessary. All for the sake of progress, my dears. What we're trying to do is advance the peculiar species, you see?"
"What a joke," she said. "You're nothing but power-hungry sadist."
"I know you're all quite sheltered and uneducated," said Call. "But did your Imbruns not teach you about our people's history? We peculiars used to be like gods, roaming the earth. Giants, kings, the world's rightful rulers. But over the centuries and millennia, we've suffered a terrible decline. We mixed with normals to such an extent that the purity of our peculiar blood has been diluted almost to nothing. And now, look at us, how degraded we've become. We hide in these temporal backwaters, afraid of the very people we should be ruling, arrested in a state of perpetual childhood by this confederacy of busybodies, these women. Don't you see how they've reduced us? Are you not ashamed? Do you have any idea of the power that's rightfully ours? Don't you feel the blood of giants in your veins?" He was losing his cool now, going red in the face. "We aren't trying to eradicate peculiardom. We're trying to save it." "Is that right?" said the clown, and then walked over to Call and spat right in his face. "Well, you got a twisted way of going at it." Call wiped the spit away with the back of his hand. "I knew it would be pointless to reason with you. The Imbruns have been feeding you lies and propaganda for 100 years. Better, I think, to take your souls and start again fresh." Miss Wren returns. "He speaks the truth," she said. "There must be 50 soldiers out there, all of them armed." Oh, moaned Bronwyn. "What are we gonna do?" "Give up," said Call. "Go quietly."
"It doesn't matter how many of them there are," Althea said. "They'll never be able to get through all my ice."
The ice! I'd nearly forgotten. We were inside a fortress of ice. "That's right," Call said brightly. "She's absolutely right. They can't get in. So there's a quick and painless way to do this, where you melt the ice voluntarily right now. Or there's the long,
stubborn, slow, boring, sad way, which is called a siege, where for weeks and months my men stand guard outside while we stay in here, quietly starving to death. Maybe you'll give up when you're desperate and hungry enough, or maybe you'll start cannibalizing one another. Either way, if my men have to wait that long, they'll torture every last one of you to death when they get in. Which inevitably they will. And if we must go the slow, boring, sad route, then please, for the sake of the children, bring me some trousers.
Althea, fetch the men some damn trousers, said Miss Wren, but do not, under any circumstances, melt this ice.
Yes, ma'am, replied Althea, and she went out.
Now, said Miss Wren, turning to Call, here's what we'll do. You tell your men to allow us safe passage out of here, or we'll kill you. If we have to do it, I assure you we will, and we'll dump your stinking corpse at a hole in the ice a piece at a time. Well, I'm sure your men won't like that much. We'll have a very long time to devise our next move.
Call shrugged and said, "Oh, all right."
"Really?"
Miss Wren said. "I thought I could scare you," he said, "but you're right. I'd rather not be killed. So take me to one of these holes in the ice, and I'll do as you've asked and shout down to my men." Althea came back in with some pants and threw them at Call, and he put them on. Miss Wren appointed Bronwyn, the clown, and the folding man to be Call's guards, arming them with broken icicles. With their points aimed at his back, we proceeded into the hall. But as we were bottlenecking through the small, dark orifice that led to the Embren meeting room, everything went wrong. Someone tripped over a mattress and went down, and then I heard a scuffle break out in the dark. Emma lit a flame just in time to see Call dragging Althea away from us by the hair. She kicked and flailed while Call held a sharpened icicle to her throat and shouted, "Stay back, or I drive this through her jugular." We followed Call at a careful distance. He dragged Althea thrashing and kicking into the meeting hall and then up onto the oval table where he put her in a chokehold, the icicle held an inch from her eye, and shouted, "These are my demands." Before he could get any further, though, Althea slapped the icicle from his hand. It flew and landed point down in the pages of the Map of Days. While his mouth was still forming an O of surprise, Althea's hand latched onto the front of Call's pants, and the O broadened into a grimace of shock. "Now!" Emma bellowed, and then she and I and Bronwyn rushed toward them through the wooden doors. But as we ran, the distance across that big room seemed to yawn, and in seconds, the fight between Althea and Call had taken another turn. Call let go of Althea and fell to the table, his arms stretched and grasping for the icicle. Althea fell with him but did not let go, now had both hands wrapped around his thigh, and a coating of ice was spreading quickly across Call's lower half, paralyzing him from the waist down and freezing Althea's hands to his leg. He got one finger around the icicle and then his whole hand, and groaning with effort and pain, he wrenched it free from the map and twisted his upper body until he had the point of it poised above Althea's back. He screamed at her to stop and let him go and melt the ice, or he'd plunge it into her. We were just yards from them now, but Bronwyn caught Emma and me and held us back. Call screamed, "Stop! Stop this!" as his face contorted in pain, the ice racing up his chest and over his shoulders. In a few seconds, his arms and hands would be encased too. Althea didn't stop. And then Call did it. He stabbed the icicle into her back. She tensed in shock, then groaned.
Miss Wren ran toward them, screaming Althea's name, while the ice that had spread across most of Call's body began very quickly to recede. By the time Miss Wren reached them, he was nearly free of it. But then the ice everywhere was melting too, fading and retracting just as quickly as Althea's life was. The ice in the attic dripping and raining down through the ceiling just as Althea's own blood ran down her body. She was in Miss Wren's arms now, slack, going. Bronwyn was on the table, Call's throat in one hand, his weapon crushed to snow in her other. We could hear the ice and floors below us melting too, and then it was gone from the windows. We rushed to look out and could see water flooding from lower windows into the street where soldiers in gray urban camo were clinging to lampposts and fire hydrants to keep from being washed away by the icy waves. Then we heard their boots stomping on the stairs below and coming down from the roof above, and moments later they burst in with their guns, shouting. Some of the men wore night vision headsets, and all of them bristled with weapons. Compact machine guns, laser-sighted pistols, combat knives. It took 3 of them to pry Bronwyn away from Call, who wheezed through his half-crushed windpipe. "Take them away, and don't be gentle," Miss Wren was shouting, begging us to comply. "Do as they say or they'll hurt you." But she wouldn't let go of Althea's body, so they made an example of her. They tore Althea away and kicked Miss Wren to the ground, and one of the soldiers fired his machine pistol into the ceiling just to scare us. When I saw Emma about to make a fireball with her hands, I grabbed her by the arm and begged her not to. "Don't, please don't. They'll kill you." And then a rifle butt slammed into my chest, and I fell gasping to the floor. One of the soldiers noosed my hands together behind me. I heard them counting us, Call listing our names, making sure even Millard was accounted for. Because of course, by now, having spent the last 3 days with us, he knew all of us, knew everything about us. I was pulled to my feet, and we were all pushed out through the doors into the hallway. Stumbling along next to me was Emma, blood in her hair, and I whispered, "Please, just do what they say." And though she didn't acknowledge it, I knew she'd heard me. The look on her face was all rage and fear and shock, and I think pity, too, for all I'd just had snatched away from me. In the stairwell, the floors and stairs below were a white-water river, a vortex of cascading waves. Up was the only way out. We were shoved up the stairs, through a door, and into strong daylight onto the roof. Everyone wet, frozen, frightened into silence. All but Emma. "Where are you taking us?" she demanded. Call came right to her and grinned in her face while a soldier held her cuffed hands behind her. "A very special place," Call said, "where not a drop of your peculiar souls will go to waste." She flinched and he laughed and turned away, stretching his arms above his head and yawning. From his shoulder blades jutted a weird pair of knobbly protrusions like the stems of aborted wings, the only outward clue that this twisted man bore any relation to an Embren. Here's your picture. Voices shouted from the top of another building.
More soldiers. They were laying down a collapsible bridge between rooftops.
"What about the dead girl?" one of the soldiers asked. "Such a pity. Such a waste," Call said, clucking his tongue. "I should have liked to dine on her soul. It's got no taste on its own, the peculiar soul," he said, addressing us. "Its natural consistency is a bit gelatinous and pasty, really, but whipped together with a sucon of remoulade and spread upon white meat, it's quite palatable." Then he laughed very loudly for a long time. As they led us away, one by one, over the wide, collapsible bridge, I felt a familiar twinge in my gut. Faint, but strengthening. Slow, but quickening. The Hologhast, unfrozen now, coming slowly back to life. Ten soldiers marched us out of the loop at gunpoint, past the carnival tents and sideshows and gaping carnival goers, down the rats' warren of alleys with their stalls and vendors and ragamuffin kids staring after us, into the disguising room, past the piles of cast-off clothes we'd left behind, and down into the underground. The soldiers prodded us along, barking at us to keep quiet, though no one had said a word in minutes, to keep our heads down and stay in line or be pistol-whipped. Call was no longer with us. He had stayed behind with the larger contingent of soldiers to mop up, which I think meant scouring the loop for hiders and stragglers. The last time we saw him, he was pulling on a pair of modern boots and an army jacket and told us he was absolutely sick of our faces but would see us on the other side, whatever that meant. We passed through the changeover and forward in time again, but not to a version of the tunnels I recognized. The tracks and ties were all metal now, and the lights in the tunnels were different, not red incandescents, but flickering fluorescent tubes that glowed a sickly green. Then we came out of the tunnel and onto the platform, and I understood why. We were no longer in the 19th century. Nor even the 20th. The crowd of sheltering refugees was gone now, the station nearly deserted. The circular staircase we'd come down was gone too, replaced by an escalator. A scrolling LED screen hung above the platform. Time to next train, 2 minutes. On the wall was a poster for a movie I'd seen earlier in the summer, just before my grandfather died. We'd left 1940 behind. I was back in the present. A few of the kids took note of this with looks of surprise and fear, as if afraid they would age forward in a matter of minutes. But for most of them, I think the shock of our sudden captivity was not about to be trumped by an unexpected trip to the present. They were worried about having their souls extracted, not about developing gray hair and liver spots. The soldiers corralled us in the middle of the platform to wait for the train. Hard shoes clicked towards us. I risked a look over my shoulder and saw a policeman coming. Behind him, stepping off the escalator, were 3 more. "Hey!" Enoch shouted. "Policeman, over here!" A soldier punched Enoch in the gut, and he doubled over. "Everything good here?" said the closest policeman.
"They've taken us prisoner," said Bronwyn. "They aren't really soldiers. They're..." And then she got a punch to the gut, too, though it didn't seem to hurt her. What stopped her from saying more was the policeman himself, who took off his mirrored sunglasses to reveal stark white eyes. Bronwyn shrank back. "A bit of advice," the policeman said. "No help is coming to you. We are everywhere, except that, and this will all be easier." Normals were starting to fill the station. The soldiers pressed in on us from all sides, keeping their weapons hidden. A train hissed into the station, filled with people. Its electric doors whooshed open, and a glut of passengers spilled out. The soldiers began pushing us toward the nearest car, the policemen going ahead to scatter what few passengers remained inside. "Find another car," they barked. "Get out!" The passengers grumbled but complied. But there were more people behind us on the platform, trying to push into the car, and a few of the soldiers who'd been ringing us had to break away to stop them. And then there was just enough confusion. The doors trying to close, but the police holding them open until a warning alarm began to sound. The soldiers shoving us forward so hard that Enoch tripped, sending other children tripping over him in a chain reaction, that the folding man, whose wrists were so skinny he'd been able to slip his cuffs, decided to make a break for it, and ran. A shot rang out, then a second, and the folding man tumbled and splayed onto the ground. The crowd swarmed away in a panic, people screaming and scrambling to escape the gunshots, and what had been merely confusion deteriorated into total chaos. Then they were shoving us and kicking us onto the train. Beside me, Emma was resisting, making the soldier who was pushing her get close. Then I saw her cuffed hands flare orange, and she reached behind her and grabbed him. The soldier crumpled to the ground, shrieking. A hand-shaped hole melted through his camo. Then the soldier who was punching me raised the butt of his gun and was about to bring it down on Emma's neck when some instinct triggered in me, and I drove my shoulder into his back. He stumbled. Emma melted through her metal cuffs, which fell away from her hands in a deformed mass of red-hot metal. My soldier turned his gun on me now, howling with rage, but before he could fire, Emma came at him from behind and clapped her hands around his face, her fingers so hot they melted through his cheeks like warm butter. He dropped the gun and collapsed, screaming. All this happened very quickly, in a matter of seconds. Then 2 more soldiers were coming at us. Nearly everyone else was on the train now. All but Bronwyn and the Blind brothers, who had never been cuffed and were merely standing by with arms linked. Seeing that we were about to be shot to death, Bronwyn did something I could never have imagined her doing under any other circumstances. She slapped the older brother hard across the face, then took the younger one and wrenched him roughly away from the older. The moment their connection was severed, they let out a scream so powerful it generated its own wind. It tore through the station like a tornado of pure energy, blowing Emma and me backwards, shattering the soldiers' glasses, eclipsing most of the frequencies my ears could detect, so that all I heard was a squeaking, high-pitched. I saw the windows of the train break, and the LED screen shiver to knife shards, and the glass light tubes of the roof explode so that we were plunged for a moment into pure blackness. Then the hysterical red flashing of emergency lights. I had fallen onto my back, the wind knocked out of me, my ears ringing. Something was pulling me backward by the collar, away from the train, and I couldn't quite remember how to work my arms and legs well enough to resist. Beneath the ringing in my ears, I could make out frantic voices shouting, "Go! Just go!" I felt something cold and wet against the back of my neck and was dragged into a phone booth. Emma was there too, folded into a ball in the corner, semi-conscious. "Pull your legs up," I heard a familiar voice say, and from around back of me came trotting a short, furry thing with a pushed-in snout and a jowly mouth. The dog, Addison. I pulled my legs into the booth, my wits returning enough to move but not speak. The last thing I saw in the hellish red flashing was Miss Wren being shoved into the train car and the doors snapping closed, and all my friends inside with her, cowering at gunpoint, framed by the shattered windows of the train, surrounded by men with white eyes. Then the train roared away into the darkness and was gone. I startled awake to a tongue licking my face. The dog. The door of the phone booth had been pulled closed, and the three of us were crammed inside on the floor.
"You passed out," said the dog.
"They're gone," I said.
"Yes, but we can't stay here. They'll come back for you. We have to go."
"I don't think I can stand up just yet." The dog had a cut on his nose and a hunk of one ear was missing. Whatever he'd done to get here, he'd been through hell too. I felt a tickle against my leg, but was too tired to look and see what it was. My head was heavy as a boulder.
"Don't go to sleep again," said the dog, and then he turned to Emma and began to lick her face.
The tickle again. This time I shifted my weight and reached for it. It was my phone. My phone was vibrating. I couldn't believe it. I dug it out of my pocket. The battery was nearly dead, the signal almost non-existent. The screen read, "Dad, 177 missed calls." If I hadn't been so groggy, I probably wouldn't have answered. At any moment, a man with a gun might arrive to finish us off. Not a good time for a conversation with my father, but I wasn't thinking straight, and any time my phone rang, my old Pavlovian impulse was to pick it up. I pressed answer. "Hello?" A choked cry on the other end. Then, "Jacob, is that you?" "It's me." I must have sounded awful, my voice a faint rasp. "Oh, my God! Oh, my God!" my father said. He hadn't expected me to answer. Maybe he'd given me up for dead already and was calling now out of some reflexive grief instinct that he couldn't switch off. What happened? Where are you, son?" "I'm okay," I said. "I'm alive, in London." I don't know why I told him that last part. I guess I felt like I owed him some truth. And then it sounded like he aimed his head away from the receiver to shout to someone else. "It's Jacob! He's in London!" Then back to me. "We thought you were dead." I know. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm sorry about leaving the way I did. I hope I didn't scare you too much." "You scared us to death, Jacob." My father sighed, a long, shivering sound that was relief and disbelief and exasperation all at once. "Your mother and I are in London too, after the police couldn't find you on the island. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just tell us where you are and we'll come get you." Emma began to stir. Her eyes opened and she looked at me, bleary, like she was somewhere deep inside herself and peering out at me through miles of brain and body. Addison said, "Good, very good. Now stay with us," and began licking her hand instead. I said into the phone, "I can't come, Dad. I can't drag you into this." "Oh, God, I knew it. You're on drugs, aren't you? Look, whoever you've gotten mixed up with, we can help. We don't have to bring the police into it. We just want you back." Then everything went dark for a second in my head, and when I came to again, I felt such a gut punch of pain in my belly that I dropped the phone. Addison jerked his head up to look at me. "What is it?" That's when I saw a long black tongue pressing against the outside of the booth's glass. It was quickly joined by a second, then a third. The hollow, the unfrozen Hologast. It had followed us. The dog couldn't see it, but he could read the look on my face easily enough. "It's one of them, isn't it?" I mouthed. "Yes," and Addison shrank into a corner. "Jacob?" My dad's tiny voice from the phone. "Jacob, are you there?" The tongues began to wrap around the booth, encircling us. I didn't know what to do, only that I had to do something. So I shifted my feet under me, planted my hands on the walls, and struggled to my feet. Then I was face to face with it, tongues fanned from its gaping, bladed mouth. Its eyes were black and weeping more black, and they stared into mine inches away through the glass. The hollow let out a low, guttural snarl that turned my insides to jelly, and I half wished the beast would just kill me and be done with it so all this pain and terror could end. The dog barked in Emma's face. "Wake up! We need you, girl! Make your fire!" But Emma could neither speak nor stand, and we were alone in the underground station, but for two women in raincoats who were backing away, holding their noses against the hollow's fetid stench. And then the booth, the whole booth, with all of us in it, swayed one way and then the other, and I heard whatever bolts anchored it to the floor groan and snap. Slowly, the hollow lifted us off the ground, 6 inches, then a foot, then 2, only to slam us back down again, shattering the booth windows, raining glass on us. Then there was nothing at all between the hollow and me, not an inch, not a pane of glass. Its tongues wriggled into the booth, snaking around my arm, my waist, then around my neck, squeezing tighter and tighter until I couldn't breathe. That's when I knew I was dead. And because I was dead, and there was nothing I could do, I stopped fighting. I relaxed every muscle, closed my eyes, and gave in to the hurt bursting inside my belly like fireworks. Then a strange thing happened. The hurt stopped hurting. The pain shifted and became something else. I entered into it, and it enveloped me, and beneath its roiling surface, I discovered something quiet and gentle. A whisper. I opened my eyes again. The hollow seemed frozen now, staring at me. I stared back, unafraid. My vision was spotting black from lack of oxygen, but I felt no pain. The hollow's grip on my neck relaxed. I took my first breath in minutes, calm and deep. And then the whisper I'd found inside me traveled up from my belly and out of my throat and past my lips, making a noise that didn't sound like language, but whose meaning I knew innately. Back off. The hollow retracted its tongues, drew them all back into its bulging mouth, and shut its jaws, bowed its head slightly, a gesture almost of submission. And then it sat down. Emma and Addison looked up at me from the floor, surprised by the sudden calm. "What just happened?" said the dog. "There's nothing to be afraid of," I said. "Is it gone?" "No. But it won't hurt us now." He didn't ask how I knew this, just nodded, assured by the tone of my voice. I opened the booth door and helped Emma to her feet. "Can you walk?" I asked her. She put an arm around my waist, leaned her weight against mine, and together we took a step. "I'm not leaving you," I said, "whether you like it or not." Into my ear she whispered, "I love you, Jacob." "I love you too," I whispered back. I stooped to pick up the phone. "Dad? What's with that noise? Who are you with?" "I'm here. I'm okay." "No, you're not. Just stay where you are." "Dad, I have to go. I'm sorry." "Wait, don't hang up," he said. "You're confused, Jake." "No, I'm like Grandpa.
I have what Grandpa had. A pause on the other end. Then, please come home. I took a breath. There was too much to say and no time to say it. This would have to do. I hope I'll be able to come home someday. But there are things I need to do first. I just want you to know I love you and Mom, and I'm not doing any of this to hurt you. We love you too, Jake, and if it's drugs or whatever it is, we don't care. We'll get you right again. Like I said, you're confused. No, Dad, I'm peculiar. Then I hung up the phone, and speaking a language I didn't know I knew, I ordered the hollow to stand. Obedient as a shadow, it did. And that's the end of book 2. How we feeling? So yeah, everybody except Jacob, Emma, and Addison are all going who knows where and doing who knows what. I was pissed when I read it. I want to haul Augustus a pen. So hype. Okay. I'm glad y'all are more hype than I was. I was just mad. I was like, bitch, what? And I had the book immediately available to me. I was still mad. I was like, how do you end a book like that? It was so wild. So gnarly. How you be doing that? How you be writing endings like that? That was whack. That was so whack. Exactly. There's also, it's sort of implied that his grandfather was kind of losing it and getting older and was not as capable of like maintaining this gift as he once was. What the fuck was that? Sorry. What just happened outside my house? What was that? Okay. Did y'all hear that? Okay. Yeah, it's also somewhat implied that maybe he never could. But there's also a character later on that I feel like if his grandfather never could, then it would be an odd way. I'll let you know when we get there. But I have a theory on that. I feel like his grandfather could still do that, just not to the extent that Jacob could. Because there is another character later on that is, I don't want to give anything away, but loosely associated with Abraham Portman. And interacts with Jacob in a way that definitely he has reservations about Jacob being as good as his grandfather, and I feel like with that level of control, if Abraham Portman never exhibited what appears to be around the same amount of control, that he wouldn't have doubts about what Jacob can do. So I feel like he has more control eventually in the series over this power that he has than maybe his grandfather did. But his grandfather could still do it.
Yeah, I'll give you more information when we get there because I don't want to spoil nothing if you haven't read it. So we will bookmark that, come back to it. Because I have theories. And I want to talk to you about some of those theories. But I can't without spoilers. So we'll just bookmark it and come back. We'll revisit this when we have more information. Well, I feel like I picture them similarly to some Lovecraft shit. And I don't think, like, if someone was like, I'd love a Shoggoth as a pet, I'd be like, what? No. But no. I don't think that's, I don't. You thought through this one? You thought through it? Because, but it's not out of the question. We'll get to it. I'm excited for you to meet a specific character that we cannot discuss yet, but we are right on the edge of it. Y'all get a baby form would be cute. He's got those big long tongues, so the blep is just like straight to the floor. It kind of pants and the tongue kind of like... Sorry, gross. I don't... Also just don't... Long blep. Yes, see? That's the argument. Great argument for that. Pro hollow gas tongue blip. Don't say his name in the chat. We're gonna get interference issues. The signal's gonna go out before we do cat facts. If you're new here, I've got some new names that I'm not accustomed to seeing. If you're in here, we do cat facts after this. I don't know who's all in here right now. And I'm not gonna check. Because I don't feel like it. Do not delay cat facts. Okay. Maybe y'all appreciates cat facts. We can't say his name. Cat book, giant book of cat facts. It's a palate cleanser for feeling kind of bummed when we read whack ass shit. Pachow. And we were going over how about to go about getting a cat and particular ways to go about that. Now we're gonna go through breeders as a section. If you want a purebred cat, this is the way to go. Good breeders are extremely knowledgeable about cats in general, and their breed in particular, and are careful about who they sell their cats to. A reputable breeder is interested in maintaining a high-quality animal, keeps careful records, and usually only produces 1 or 2 litters per breeding female per year, which is more than you can say about some dog breeders. I'm pretty sure our next-door neighbors are dog breeders. I'm not 100p on this. Okay, good. Because I was like, I don't want to make allegations, but they are also not super responsible with the dog. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a judgment call. Yes, the ones that don't shut up, because, okay, for real, they had different dogs. They are not the same dogs. Yes, all the ankle biters. The little ones. I already don't like them because they don't tip. So maybe I'm being judgmental. I don't care. Little yeet doggos. Yeah, they're like little, like Shih Tzus. They look like little bitty Shih Tzus. I don't know. Or, yeah. I don't trust people who don't tip service workers. Pomeranian crosses? Okay. I've never gotten a good look at them because the bushes are real thick over there. Because we don't trim them down. Because when we trim them down, our dog goes up to the fence because he's curious and they start going off. And then our dog is like, oh God. And he's like scared of them. Our big old dog, who's a mutt by the way, is scared of these little fucking ankle biting shits and won't go outside and pee. So we just sort of keep cover there. Because Scout's a big old baby. He's a big old baby. He's so big, he could be so vicious if he wanted to. He's a big old baby. He's scared of everything. He's afraid of roofers. We just found this out. Every once in a while, we just notice he just acts super weird. Like laying down and whining for no reason and like not eating and like being super weird. And we keep, every time it happens, we get kind of startled. And Dave's always like, I think the dog's sick. And I'm like, is the dog sick? And he was like, I don't know. He's acting real weird. And then we realized it correlated to people getting their roofs fixed in the area after the tornado. Anytime there were roofers, he acted that way. And then we would think he was sick. And then after the roofers were gone, he'd be super chill again. And we were like, what the fuck is up with the dog? And finally we figured out what it is. He's afraid of roofers. He's also afraid of fireworks, thunderstorms, little yappy dogs. He's borderline afraid of the cat. She keeps kicking him out of his own bed. All she has to do is walk up and lay near the bed, and he will get up and leave the bed, which then Pond will then get up and go to the very center of this very large dog bed, and then just plop right down in the middle, and the dog will go fuck right off. He's a big old baby. Me too, Scout. She's just a baby. She is. She is just a baby. He has no idea. My mom made Ellie a bed and Smokey took over. Yeah, I'm just... Because the thing is, they could both lay on it. It is big enough to where they could both lay on it. But anytime she will get close to the bed, he will then just like, nope, and like nope the hell out. And then the cat will take over it. And you could both fit on there. And the cat knows. Pawn knows what she's doing. She knows exactly. It's kind of funny. It's a little bit funny. Just a little bit. All right. So we are gearing up for game time. We're going to play some Cult of the Lamb. We have our own group mini... Is it raining? Are you out in the rain right now? Because I'll come and get you. It's not raining, right? It stopped raining. It was raining earlier. It's not raining now. Doesn't matter. I hear you. I will see you all in the Discord. We are going to adjourn and go
play some video games. I will see you. I have to get off here and do something. I have to go to the bathroom and replace all my liquids. Yes, he is. And I will see you all in maybe like 15 minutes, okay? And in case you want to do this again, you know the drill. Next Tuesday, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Central, we'll be starting book 3. See y'all then.